let's cut ahead to the early 20th century. Men thought, well, we need to go to the Arctic and Antarctic for the glory of it, if nothing else. You know, it's sort of, they're all Victorian people, the Edwardian age. It was a thing to do, to explore the world as much as possible, to map and explore the world.
Go to the deepest, darkest regions of the Amazon and the Congo and, you know, weird, Indonesia or whatever. And then obviously the other extreme, which is go and walk across 10,000 miles of ice. Good luck.
Yeah.
Hope you come back with all your toes.
For the glory of saying you've done it. Yeah, trying to find the mouth of the Nile.
Yeah.
Trying to find a northwest passage through northern Canada. All these sorts of things. So both America, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, France, these are the countries that were in a position to try these things. The North Pole, in 1909, I think it was, an American got that one.
Really?
Robert Peary. Yeah, he sort of Amundsen, the great Amundsen, who'll come into this, the Norwegian, who was very, very experienced in Greenland, was gonna do the North Pole,
right? And
he was pipped by Robert Peary. Just pipped him. They thought they could, because the North Pole, there's no landmass there. It's just frozen sea.
Ice,
it's just frozen sea or pack ice. Yeah. And so they thought if they could get on the pack ice that was flowing in the right direction, you could get quite close and just allow it to drag you across the geographical North Pole, and you could claim it that way. But an American who took a big team of Inuits, dog teams, and Inuits, the best sledge dog teams in the world, just pipped him. So the Americans had got that one. However, the South Pole, for loads of different reasons, is just technically much, much harder than that. Much, much, much harder. That's sort of a piece of cake.
Really?
In a way, in comparison,
Why?
Why? Well, because for a start, you can almost walk there from Canada.
Well, it's just going to be flat, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't have to have a massive, massive expedition to even get there. Yeah. Then you don't have to walk across uncharted mountain ranges.
Yeah.
You don't have to walk across glaciers.
Yeah.
Crevasse-filled glaciers.
If it's just frozen pack ice, then it can't have too much in the way of geography.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just this endless white, flat steppe.
It's like,
basically.
Yeah. Just the logistics of it are much, much, much easier. You don't have to put out tons and tons worth of depots and staging points to get to do all of it. It's just way easier.
Antarctica is actually a continent with land underneath and, as you say, mountains and volcanoes.
It's like a trans-Antarctic mountain range, and in the middle of Antarctica, there's like a higher plateau. You have to go up glaciers, go up mountains, and then you sort of summit, but then it's a giant, like, incredibly desolate plateau.
Yeah.
And you're at like 9,000 feet, 10,000 feet. And it's like being at the top of a mountain. There's not much oxygen. You're sort of dying. The human body's kind of dying the whole time. You're up there.
And it's going to be like minus 30.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
That sounds awful.
50, 60, 70 miles an hour wind, minus 40, up to minus 70. Just crazy, yeah.
Yeah, why would you do it?
Yeah. Well, it's like going to the moon.
Yeah.
You can bring back a few moon rocks and do a few sort of experiments on gravity, but there's not actually a great point in doing it. But you've set new limits. You've raised the bar for humanity.
No, that's fair.
I'm of the school of thought that it's great stuff.
It absolutely is great stuff.
Braver.
Not for me.
Yeah. Braver than I
Yeah.
would ever be, I think.
Oh, yeah.
If someone said you could go to Mars, and there's a decent chance, there's like 20, 30, 40% chance you're going to die, would you do it? I know you've got a family, of course. What if you didn't have a family?
Still wouldn't do it.
Yeah, because I think I would. Just to perhaps...
Best of luck.
Perhaps make it into the history books. I don't know.
I've got too active an imagination, to be honest.
Like tired of reading about other people's great achievements.
Sure, but I can just imagine too many things that would go wrong. I'd be like, nah, it's just not worth it.
It'd be terrifying the whole time, wouldn't it?
Until
you got back to Earth.
Yeah.
It'd probably be quite terrifying.
Yeah, not for me. But I'm glad that some people are doing it.
Fair enough. So the Admiralty, the British Admiralty, really wanted this South Pole thing because it's a point of national prestige as well. It's like going to the moon. Yeah. That will always be America's achievement, going to the moon first, if you believe they They really did it. So the
Stanley Kubrick will always be responsible for American. No, I'm joking.
yeah,
Joking.
Stanley Kubrick's film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 1901, they send their first attempt down there. The ship, the Discovery, and Captain Scott is the captain of it. One of his right-hand men, one of the most important guys on that ship, is Ernest Shackleton,
Mm-hmm.
who will come into it later. And just to cut short, the Discovery, they do hit the Antarctic landmass. They make a big hut there, the Discovery hut,
Mm-hmm.
at Hut Point. But they don't get, and they try hiking, they try making depots, supply depots towards the pole, but don't really get all that far.
Right.
They get maybe a third of the way. It's like, what, 900 odd miles.
A third of the way still seems like a lot.
Yeah, still they had a good crack
Yeah.
at it. Again, these really were, that Discovery expedition of 1901 really were the first humans ever just to hike straight southwards.
Yeah.
They didn't know there was going to be this giant plateau or mountain range or anything. They didn't know.
Yeah, they had no idea.
Yeah. So they
didn't know they were all going to get eaten by yetis. They didn't know.
Yeah, and they're not expert skiers. It's all on foot.
Yeah,
Man hauling giant sleds, just literally pulling the giant sleds along themselves.
Well, I take it they had to bring all of their own food. I mean, like they couldn't hunt
everything,
anything.
absolutely everything. Yeah.
So it's a lot of weight to take.
Yeah, you take loads of timber as well to build a big hut once you get there.
Yeah. But even then, how warm could that have been?
Well, yeah, you're out of the wind. I mean, quite often Scott talks about how -13 is nice, -17 is balmy.
Thank God.
It's absolutely fine.
Thank God it's -13.
Like at -20 or 30, you're a bit uncomfortable. Yeah, hardier,
just a bit
hardier men than they make these days.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, they make a point of not really complaining, hardly ever. It's got to be absolutely dire straits before anyone will really complain about anything. Like you're sort of dying of frostbite before you mention it, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
very stoic,
sterner stuff.
So yeah, in 1901 they go down there, and there's another important figure who's Dr. Wilson, who comes into it a fair few times. He's on all sorts of these different expeditions, and Scott, Wilson, and Shackleton make an attempt to push as far south as they possibly can, and Shackleton actually gets a little bit weak or lame or something wrong with his leg, and the other two have to haul him back. But they never got close, really.
Yeah.
But later, Scott wrote about how Shackleton had let them down. It's like a bit of a slap in the face. That is really out of order in the Edwardian period to call someone out like that. So,
well, yeah, but I mean, like, sorry,
It's true, yeah.
Didn't mean to become lame.
Right, yeah. Can't help it.
Yeah.
Like later, we'll get into how some people start blistering up and sunburning and going snowblind and getting frostbite, and others won't. They've had the same amount of warmth and energy and everything, and some guys' health just fails before others. And it's not your fault, really, is it?
No. I mean, what can you do?
It's like being at high altitude. Some people's bloodlets can hold oxygen better than others. You might even be overweight or something, but you can deal with altitude better than someone. And that's just, it's not your fault one way or another, is it? You're just sort of born with that ability.
It's how you're made.
Yeah, right. So after the discovery, a few years passed, and then the Admiralty give Shackleton his own shot, his own.
Sorry, before we go on, so they travelled 900 miles inland. What sort of technology did they have?
So just to say, from the coast to the pole is about 900 odd miles.
Oh, right. So they
in
travelled.
the Nimrod, 200 or 300 miles. Yeah.
Still 200 miles,
Yeah.
minus 20.
Crazy. Right? So,
what sort of technology did they have? So this is going to be sort of early 20th century. So I mean, it's just going to be a compass, right? And like
sextant and compass. Yeah.
And presumably they had lots of I don't know, like. No, was it woolen coats or something? I mean, like, what were they wearing?
I'll put pictures up so people can see. Not enough, it looks like. Yeah,
because I'm thinking modern. Like, I've got a really, really nice coat for a winter, and it's modern fibers and all that, and it keeps me very, very warm. And I'm thinking they didn't have that,
Yeah, it's crazy what they're wearing. Like, I'll show pictures from the Scott expedition, and it's like they're wearing a woolen jumper. And like a thin smock.
See, I felt silly
and
saying
a woolly hat.
I felt silly saying they'd be wearing wool, But okay, they're actually wearing wool.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's not enough. Like there's a great picture of Amundsen and actually another one of Robert Peary.
Yeah.
And they're all dressed up in Inuit gear with like reindeer fur
Right.
and stuff. You're like, oh well, that looks right.
Yeah, that looks like it could do the job.
But the Brits are just wearing not enough warm things.
Mad
it
dogs
really
and
does
Englishmen.
look like, yeah. one of the party who come into it, Bowers. It seems like he's almost impervious to cold, even when Scott and the others are complaining that they've got to pull their balaclavas over their ears because they're going to, or their noses are starting to get frostbitten. Bowers is just still walking around with just a woolly hat on, and doesn't ever get frostbite or anything.
That's crazy.
And yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, what they're wearing is just, in fact, because Scott in his journals boasts quite a lot that they've got the best, most scientific gear possible.
What, a woolly hat?
Yeah.
I mean,
And he thinks that their gear is better than the Inuit reindeer furs.
no, it's not.
And we know for a fact it's nowhere near as good.
Yeah, I don't know I don't need to know for a fact. I can look at it and see this.
Like reindeer fur stuff,
Yeah.
to this day is superb.
Yeah, it's
Kind of obviously, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, these creatures evolved in these environments, and so of course they're well adapted to living in them. An Englishman's woolly hat is not well adapted to going to the Antarctic.
Yeah.
You delusional fool.
It's not sort of explicitly done that it's about bravado, but that's definitely there.
Yeah.
That it's a little bit of who can, like, showing
Tough
off
it
to
out.
each other a little bit. Yeah.
It's just stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, you would think at least wear more layers.
Yeah,
Why aren't
yeah,
you padded out like
Yeah,
you're wearing
exactly.
8 layers?
Yeah. I mean, it's fine, obviously a
but-
woolly jumper is going to be one of the layers, or 2 or 3 of the layers. Then you want some sort of windproof smock or something over it, so you've got protection from the chill.
They do wear these smock things, but they don't look. They're not very thick.
Right.
They're not sort of padded and insulated.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like.
But I mean, I guess they wouldn't have to be if you were wearing like 6 layers of wool, but they're not, are they?
Yeah.
So it's just like
It's crazy. Really.
mental.
They're very, very hardy individuals. But yeah, they manhaul. We talk about their technology. They manhaul things, dragging their own sleds just by foot, and a bit on skis sometimes.
Don't they have dogs?
It's part of the way. You'll have some dog teams.
Oh, what happened to the
and
dogs?
some, different things on different expeditions.
Oh, right.
And sometimes ponies.
Right. Okay.
Which is really the wrong thing to do. A hoofed foot on snow is bad.
And also, don't they eat a lot?
Well, yeah, you need loads of fodder for them.
They can't just graze.
Yeah. Because a hoofed foot is like standing on a single finger almost.
Yeah.
So it's going to punch through any sort of snow or ice. If it's a hard surface, the ponies had good going. But if it's soft or like soft snow, well, they just sink down, and then you've got to wade through that.
Yeah.
So yeah, taking horses or ponies to the Antarctic is not a good idea, and yet they did it loads. And I'll mention in the final, not the final, but in Scott's last expedition, the main one of the Terra Nova, they take motorized skidoos.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put up a picture so everyone can see. They're like, it's only like 1910 still.
Yeah.
They've got like these big motorized sledges.
Yeah.
And we'll talk all about that. But it's very early still. I mean, 1910, like commercial cars will be quite rare.
Yeah. How reliable these things could have been. Surely the question.
Okay, so after the Discovery expedition, Shackleton gets his own shot in sort of 1908. They go down there in 1909. He's aboard the Nimrod. And he actually gets quite close. There's the Ross Ice Shelf down there. There's the Ross Sea. Loads of things were named after Captain James Ross from the Victorian period. There's like the Ross Sea, Ross Island, the Ross Ice Shelf. And you land on the side of the Ross Ice Shelf in the shadow of Mount Erebus. And you go hike inwards, south, and you will nearly always find this one particular giant glacier that cuts through the mountain range. The Beardmore Glacier, very famous glacier. People just call it the Beardmore. And giant glaciers like that are very, very, very dangerous places, ridiculously dangerous, really. A crevasse field, a moving crevasse-filled.
Precarious.
It's sort of, I've heard more modern people that Ranulph Fiennes say, it's trying to kill you. It's trying to eat you at every step. Unless you're very, very good, very, very careful, you will come a cropper on something like the Beardmore.
Yeah.
And if you get to the top of that, then you've still got more mountain range. And then eventually you hit that higher plateau. And all in all, about 900 odd miles. Shackleton in the Nimrod, they get to within his final party, about 90 nautical miles of the pole. So that's quite close. It's very close, really. That's probably a week, or between a week and 2 weeks worth of marching to have got there.
What made them turn back?
Well, they just didn't have enough, all sorts of reasons. Right. They were, as army people say, it was on their chin strap. They were nearly dying already. Right. They're very low on all sorts of provisions and fuel, and the weather was worse than they thought. It'd taken them longer than they thought to do different stages. They got very close, but it would have been suicide to push on. And so Shackleton turns back. But however, that is the world record. No one had ever been anywhere near that close before. And then the following year, or that year actually, is when Robert Peary gets to the North Pole. And so when Shackleton and the Nimrod come back, it's like the South Pole is still this last shining great prize of the heroic age of exploration.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.